Hey everybody, what is going on? Greg here with Z21 Learning, and today we're going to do part 2 of our series on Google Earth Pro. So if you remember in part 1, we kind of talked about the interface and how things work and about adding elements such as placemarks and polygons to your map and stuff, and kind of about how tours worked. And today we're going to go ahead and talk about doing all those things as well as rendering maps out. And we're going to look at a couple mock map example requests that you might get that I've just created off the fly, and we'll kind of make some of these be maps. So enough about that. Let's jump into it. So I've got this map request, and basically what they're asking for is for me to highlight McGregor Viewpoint inside Lapine State Park, and they're going to be cutting this map with a video. This is kind of a good point. You need to find out if your map is the sole source of video or if the reporter, producer, whoever is taking your map and cutting it with other video. Typically, if you are providing the only source of video for the story, you want to make sure that your map is long enough so that if you have to send it to the MOS ID, the director isn't going to run out of video once they start playing it. Most producers and reporters don't tell you exactly how long their story is if you are providing the only source of video for it. So I usually go ahead and shoot for a minute long. A minute's typically more than enough time for them to go ahead and write a script with the video to match. If you're not sure, you can always go up and ask the person and be like, hey, how long do you want this to be? In this case, however, I've been told that they're going to take this map and they're cutting it with our video. So most likely they send a photographer down there, or a reporter's gone down there and has already got video, or we just have B-roll that they're going to splice this map with. So I don't have to worry about making this be a minute long. I might just make this be maybe 20 or 30 seconds instead. So let's go ahead and jump into it. First things first, I'm going to go to Places. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. We'll call this McGregor Viewpoint. And they mentioned that they want McGregor Viewpoint, Lapine State Park highlighted, but I like to go ahead and also highlight the near cities that are in relation to, in this case, the state park. So I know that Lapine is close by, so I'm going to go ahead and search for Lapine. And then Google Earth's going to go ahead and zoom in, fly to this location. I'm going to add a place mark. And I'm going to go ahead and go with this white blank one. I'm going to change the scale to be 2. And then for cities, I typically make my cities be this kind of red. See, that looks good. I also don't like the fact that the label overlaps with the icon, so I'm going to add some spaces in front. And then I typically type my cities out in all caps, so I'll just do Lapine. And it's already set to 2 being the scale for the label, so that looks good. So I've got Lapine, and then I'm probably also going to do Sun River, and I know that's the nearest sort of town north of the state park. And very similar to what I did with Lapine Placemark, I'm just going to go ahead and do 3 spaces in front, type out Sun River. The icon color and icon shape are already the same because it looks at the previous one and just copies it over. So press OK. Then I'm going to do Lapine State Park. Go ahead and zoom in here, and I'll add a place mark for this. And I'm going to change this one to be, do this white diamond. And the reason why I go with a white color is whenever I want to change the color for the place mark, white's a very easy color to go ahead and just put a color on top of it. Remember, whenever you use a color, it's just going to go ahead and apply it on top of the color that already exists for your icon. So because it's white, if I do a red, it's going to make it be red. If I do purple, it's going to be purple, as opposed to maybe one that has like a gradient or something on it. So I'm going to go ahead and go with, let's go with this kind of peachy color here. And the name is just going to be Lapine State Park. It's interesting, though, that they spelled it as one word. Lapine, that is. I thought it was 2. So we're going to go ahead and Google that, actually. We're going to get to the bottom of this. So Lapine State, oops, might help if I can spell it. Lapine State Park. And that's great. So Google Earth has it as 2. And Oregon State. Okay, so Oregon State Parks has it as 1. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and change this to just be 1. So I'm gonna go back in here and do that. And I'm also envisioning highlighting the area of the park too, because I don't really know how big this park is. So let me go ahead and do Lapine State Park map. And this is from the Oregon State Parks website. So I'm going to use this map. I'm not worried about copyright infringement or anything because I'm not actually going to go ahead and put this map inside of my map. I'm not going to export it out with their map on top. I'm just going to use it more as a guide. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit here. Kind of give myself some area. And this is an instance where I'm going to go ahead and use the image overlay to go ahead and just trace out the outline of the state park. So here it is. I'm going to open it. And now what I need to do is I need to go ahead and match this map up with the landscape. So in this case, this is actually going to be a little bit easier because there's a lot of different unique features, namely with the curvature of the river here. That's going to make it pretty easy to go ahead and match up. Like I can tell this section of the river is going to go right here. So to go ahead and move and shrink or expand the size of your image overlay, I typically just go from one of the corners and just kind of drag it in. We're going to go ahead and shrink this down. You can tell this spot's going to go right over here, so I'm just going to drag that kind of up there. And this is kind of a very fine process, trying to go ahead and match these things up. I'm not necessarily going to make this be the most perfect job ever, but it's going to give me a pretty good idea of where McGregor Viewpoint is. And the nice thing is actually telling me here on the map too. And they have it spelled as 2 different words from McGregor, so this map request has a lot of different problems with it. Let's try dragging this just out a little bit now. I'm going to try rotating this map a little bit. And the way you rotate the image overlay, rather, is you have this kind of diamond over here, and you just click inside. And if you drag up, it rotates it to the right or clockwise. If you drag down, it rotates it counterclockwise. So I'll try something like that. All right, that's looking pretty good. I can tell that the river over here is a little skew. I might try changing the rotation just a little bit, but it's pretty close anyways. It's close enough for our purposes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring the opacity back up, and then I really just want to trace the outline of the park. So I'm going to go ahead and just call this Lapine State Park overlay. Press OK. And my image overlay has been added over here in places. Then I'm going to go up to my polygon tool. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of trace the outline of this park. There we go. I'll just add a point there to kind of correct out this map. I think I had a stray point over here or something. Anyways, that looks pretty good. So I'm going to use this as my polygon, and I might change my area color to be like this kind of sort of forest green. And we'll drop the opacity to make that be 65, 65. Altitude we'll do relative to ground. Kind of have it rise up to extend size to ground too, so it's very three-dimensional. I'm going to turn my image overlay off here just for a second to kind of make sure I'm looking at this and previewing it. And I know I can't zoom in too much because then my placemark here is going to be obscured. So if I have a very kind of broad view like this, that'll look pretty good. And actually, looks like McGregor Viewpoint is pretty darn close to this placemark already. And if I have place marks that are too close, when you rotate around, the text kind of, or the labels rather, kind of overlap with each other and they start to jump around and move. So I'm actually probably going to move this Lapine State Park Placemark down. Let's do get info. I'll probably move it down here. I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of the icon too. Let me place it up here. Kind of jumps a little bit when you get rid of the icon. There we go, looks good. So then I'm going to add a place mark for, let's see, McGregor viewpoint. Let me drop this down a little bit so it's more like here where the viewpoint's going to go. Okay, got it. And I'm going to turn this off. And I'm actually going to Google McGregor viewpoint really fast because I want to make sure I'm spelling this right. So is it McGregor Memorial Viewpoint? And on the sign there, they have it spelled as one word, so that's good to know. So I'm going to go ahead and come back over here to Google Earth. I'm going to get a place mark added, so I'll do something like this. And I'll probably go kind of with the same green. Change the scale to be 2. So it's going to be McGregor Memorial Viewpoint. And I'm going to put the position right over here. So this is looking pretty good. And I might put another place mark over here to go ahead and mention this is the Deschutes River. So I like to go ahead and just sometimes throw ones out like, oh, here's this river that you know about. And Deschutes is a major river that people in Central Oregon are going to know about. So this kind of gives more perspective for what they're looking at. All right, so this is looking pretty good. So the way I'm envisioning this map is going to work is we're going to go ahead and start out with a really broad view that's going to encompass both of the nearest locations, the nearest towns, as well as the state park. So I'm going to make this be kind of my starting view. So I'm going to go ahead and change, let's get this in order. So let's do Lapine. I'm going to make this be the view for Sun River or Lapine. So I'm going to change this. It's a snapshot view. And then we're going to go ahead and kind of zoom into the state park, showing the relation of McGregor Memorial Viewpoint and Deschutes River and stuff. So then we'll do the next one. We'll make this be Lapine State Park. And basically the way I'm going to go ahead and treat this is I'm just going to go ahead and think of this as being kind of, this one's bongs. This is going to be 1, this is going to be 2, 3, 4. So I might have, 3 or 4 different views of Lapine State Park once we actually zoom in. So I'm going to turn both of these on. And then maybe we'll kind of rotate around, something like that. Maybe we'll zoom in just a little bit more. Maybe we'll do like an overhead shot. And then we might do something like this too. Really kind of what I'm trying to do is find different angles showing this area, this map. So that really kind of gives the viewer something to look at. That's not just a still map, that's actually somewhat engaging, and it's not too quick, not too jerky, but also not just boring either. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and turn off both my viewpoint and Deschutes River place marks, and I'm going to go back to my starting frame for this tour. And the way I kind of think of my place marks over here is I kind of think of just being, this is going to be frame 1, or this is going to be my first view, this is going to be my second view, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, so on and so forth. You can kind of do this however you want. This is just kind of the way I think of it. And I also have to remember that I don't need to make this map be a minute long. It's only about 20 seconds, so I may not end up using all these different views either. I'm going to go ahead and start my tour. And give it a couple seconds for pad at the beginning. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. And as we're zooming in, I'm going to turn on both my place marks. I'm going to hold this position for a couple seconds. We're going to change it. Hold this position for a couple seconds. Change it again. Hold the second position for a couple seconds. Change it again. And then I'm going to give some pad here at the end, so I'm not going to go ahead and click on Sun River to see their view. I'm going to go ahead and then double click on Deschutes River. And remember, that's going to go ahead, even though the camera didn't move, Google Earth is going to go ahead and record that as being a keyframe of the animation. So I'm going to have this kind of 5-second pad at the end of my tour. So I'm just going to kind of scrub through my timeline here. There we go. And I have this pad at the end. That looks great. It's actually almost 40 seconds long, so it's a little long, but that's okay. Call this McGregor Viewpoint Tour. And close out of tour mode. That's important. You have to close out of tour mode before you can go into Movie Maker. And now we're going to go up to Tools and go to Movie Maker. The way Movie Maker works is you have a couple of different options for recording. You have one where you can record it live. And then the second is you can go ahead and do a tour, and then you can select your tour and tell it to record it, or not record it, to export it. So in this case, it's looking at the latest tour that was saved, which would happen to be this Viewpoint Tour. So I'm going to select that. Go over to Advanced, make sure that I'm selected to QuickTime. If you're working on PC, I am going to talk about what you're going to do with PC in just a moment. But first I need to go ahead and kind of show you how to do it on a Mac. And actually I'm getting too far ahead of myself because I need to go up to Google Earth. I need to purge out the cache first, because otherwise my computer is going to go ahead and take forever to export this out. All right, now let's go back in here. Still got that, still set to QuickTime. My resolution is going to be 1920 by 1080, that's fine. FPS is going to be 30, that's frames per second. I'm going to browse. I'm going to save this in my raw media folder. I'm just going to call this, let's see, McGregor Viewpoint Map. I'm going to press Create Movie, and that opens up this window for the compression. And I'm going to change the compression type from being video to animation. If you're working on Mac, I typically find that animation and Apple Intermediate Codec are probably the best options. Some of these other ones start to look a little very pixelated at times, so I typically stay away from those. Frames per second, I'm going to make it be 2997. You could also go at 30 if you wanted. Both those are fine. Depth, I'm going to change this to be millions of colors. I'm not going to do millions of colors plus because I don't have any transparency in my map, so there's no need for it. Quality, I'll go ahead and do best, and then OK. And you get this progress bar with Movie Maker, and this is going to take a couple minutes to go ahead and render out. And once it's done, I'll kind of show you what it looks like. While this is rendering, let's talk about what you would do if you were on a PC. So Movie Maker on PC is a little bit different. You have your same old record options, so you would select the tour that you wanted. You go ahead and browse and find where you want to save this to. So in this case, I'm saving this test tour to my desktop. For your video parameters, you're going to have to go with custom. You have one in there called HD 1080p, but the frames per second is going to be 60, and what you want to be is 2997. So go with custom. You just have to manually type in 1920 by 1080 with 2997 as a frames per second. For the output, you want to do MP4 as your file type. I know that they have a H.264 option. We've tried H.264 in the past, and all the video looks green when you play it back. Not sure why. I've seen some other people actually do H.264 and it works fine for them. Could be some sort of setting on our computer or what, but anyways, just stick with MP4. And then you're going to do, for picture quality, maximum. And then you just press Create Movie. And you get something like this. Okay, so my map is finished rendering, and this is what it looks like. So I can just scrub through the timeline here. It looks pretty good. It changes the view, zooms in, does an overhead shot, holds that for a couple seconds of pad, and that looks great. Go ahead and save that out. And then what I would need to do if I were to send this to either Masa D or to a producer is I would need to go ahead and put this inside of Media Encoder and convert it to being an H.264 file, then send that on to them. Okay, so that's one example. I've got two more examples I can go ahead and show you guys. Hopefully they'll be a little quicker. So one is this Green Lakes area. A hiker got lost near there. Maybe show South Sister in the road or something like that. Use your best judgment. So again, we're going to go ahead and create a new folder. We'll call it, let's see, a Lost Hiker. And we'll go ahead and do Bend, because I know Bend is the nearest city to South Sister. And I'll add a place mark for that. And we'll put it white. Change the scale to be 2. Color will be red. Space, space, space. Put Bend. And then we need to go ahead and do Green Lakes. So I'm going to type in Green Lakes loop. Not sure what that, no, that's not it. Let's try Green Lake instead. Let's see if that gets us a result. And if it doesn't, I kind of know where the area is, so I'll just go there manually. Here we go, Green Lakes, Oregon. And it still takes me to Green Lakes loop. All right, so I'm just going to go over there manually, because I kind of know where it is. It's actually right here. This is Green Lakes area, so I'm just going to put my place mark here. And I'm going to use kind of this water one again. So I'll do 2 and do Green Lakes. And then they also mentioned they wanted to go ahead and put a place mark for South Sister. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and type in South Sister. And that happens to be right here. Now, one thing to note when you're adding place marks to mountains or anything that's kind of got a very, very defined peak to it, you may notice that the place mark may jump up and down. It's kind of annoying. And basically what's happening is the place mark is losing reference to where it's supposed to reside on the face of the earth. So it's not sure if it's supposed to be higher in this point or lower in this point. So it just starts jumping up and down, and it's a little weird. Now we might get lucky with this one because there's a bit of a flat area here on top. So I'm going to put my place mark more like right here. And there's no guarantee. This may still jump up and down. I'm not quite sure. So do something like that and call this South Sister. And then they mentioned maybe having the road also highlighted. I'm guessing they want the South Century Drive, because it's the nearest road that goes up through the Cascades here, the Cascade Lakes Highway. So we'll go ahead and put a icon here, and we'll just call this, let's see, Cascade Lakes Highway. And for roads, I typically kind of do this bright teal color. No reason why. I just think it looks kind of cool. So that looks pretty good. So now I've got all 3 of my place marks here. So in this example, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm just going to go ahead and do a snapshot view for zooming into this location. So I'm thinking my first shot is going to be a broad view of showing Green Lakes in relation to Bend. And then we're going to do a second shot where we're going to zoom into the Green Lakes area, and we're going to show it in relation to South Sister and the Cascade Lakes Highway. So I'm going to turn off both those icons first and kind of do a broad view. Let's get this set up. So then we'll do something like this. And then when I double click in here, it's going to go ahead and zoom in. And I didn't really like that because I get this awkward camera movement when I start to zoom in here. The camera kind of backs off for a second, so I might actually zoom out a little bit more. Try something like that. And then, oh, it's still doing it. That's not that. All right, I can live with that. And then we'll kind of zoom in a little bit like this. And what I'm going to do after that, when I zoom into this view, is I'm just going to manually control it and kind of just zoom in using my 3D cursor. So that's my kind of game plan. They didn't say they're going to cut this with our video, so I'm going to go ahead and presume that this is going to be the only thing for the video, so I'm providing the sole source. All right, let's give it a shot. So I'm going to go ahead and start my tour. My tour is rolling. Go ahead and zoom into the Green Lakes area. I'm going to turn on both of the place marks. And then I'm going to take my 3 cursor and manually zoom in closer. So I'm probably going to end up cutting off the top of South Cistern. I'll lose my other place mark here, and that's totally fine. I'm not too concerned about that at this point. Because we're really just trying to show kind of the terrain and stuff of the Green Lakes area, so that's what I'm primarily focused on at this point in the map. And I'm not going to provide any kind of buffer shot where I'm just going to have it stop. I'm just going to kind of drive this on through. It'll probably stop it here right now. So that looks pretty good. And I don't really have any of my icons jumping too much. We got a little bit of camera wobbliness here right there. That's not too bad. Sometimes my camera will kind of bounce up and down. You kind of have to redo the map, but this does raise a good point of actually previewing your tour once you're done with it. Make sure it actually does look good and stuff, and the camera isn't bouncing up and down, things like that. So I'm actually happy with this. So I'm going to press the floppy disk, call this Green Lakes area map. Oops, I had to call this tour. But that's all right. I kind of know what it means. I'm not actually going to go ahead and render this out because it kind of takes a while, and we already went through that, and I think you guys have the point. But let me do just one more example really fast so we're all on the same page. This one's a fatal car crash at Bull Springs Road and Shovelin Park. So, same things before. I'm going to create a new folder, call this Fatal Car Crash. And I'm not quite sure where Bull Springs Road is. Apparently it's here, kind of out in the Goonies. And, oh, it's already set to blue, so I don't need to worry about that. And I'm just going to call this Bull Springs Road. And it looks like this is closest to Bend. Oh, Shovelin Park. Okay, I actually know where this area is. And it happened at the intersection, so I'm guessing it happened here because it's still Bull Springs Road. So I actually need to go ahead and move my place mark down closer to here. And this is kind of an important thing to note is sometimes roads do change names. So it looks like this is Northwest Shovelin Park Road. But up here it's Johnson Road, so I'm not sure if it got changed at this intersection or if it gets changed up here, but I just kind of keep that in mind too. Roads are kind of special. So I'm going to drag another place mark down here, call this Northwest Shovelin Park Road. And then they said there was a fatal car crash at the intersection, so I'll need to add another place mark for this. And we're going to change this one to be this kind of red exclamation mark and call this Fatal Car Crash. Kind of like what I've been doing with the R1s, I need to show this in relation to the nearest city, which in this case happens to be Bend. So I'm going to do start off with a wide shot of Bend. Change that to scale. Change the scale to 2. Color to red. All caps. That looks good. All right, so same thing as before. I need to start with my opening shot, which in this case is going to be this, and get in there. So I'm going to change my snapshot view. Then we're going to go ahead and zoom into our fatal car crash. Turn both these on. And then we'll just kind of do some rotations around this location. So I'm just going to change snapshot view for these 3 different place marks. And if I wanted to actually add more views to this, what I can do is I can go ahead and add a place mark to my scene. And then I can just turn off both the opacity for the label and the icon. And then I can just kind of this, and I can change that snapshot view too. So even though the Placemark doesn't actually show up on the scene, I can use it just as a placeholder so I can use it as another view during my tour. And I typically wouldn't do this because I have a 3D mouse, but if you don't have a 3D mouse, this is another way you can kind of cheat the system. All right, so we're ready to go ahead and start our tour. So we start off with the wide view here. Start my tour, let it run for a couple seconds, and then I'm go ahead and zoom in. And as we're zooming in, we're going to turn on both my other place marks. Hold this view for a couple seconds. Then we're going to change the view. Hold this view for a couple seconds. And then we're going to change the view again. And again, we're going to change the view. And I almost had the labels here on these two different place marks overlap, and that would not have been good, but they didn't, so I'm safe. And then I'm going to go ahead and just kind of hold this view at the end, kind of give myself some buffer. One thing I would like to point out is you notice that my time code for the tour has stopped. And the reason why it stopped is because there's no movement on the screen. So it's telling me that the last movement that actually happened, where you moved your cursor, something was like 43. So I'm going to go ahead and double click this again. Kind of gives me that pad. And I'm just going to scrub through my timeline here. That looks good. A little bit of camera shakiness here, that's not too bad though. And it actually didn't record my pad there at the end, so I may have, I don't know if I stopped it or didn't click it all the way or what, but whatever. You get the point. But it's easy enough to go ahead and redo it again if I need to. All right, so that's kind of how to do animated maps. Thanks for watching part 2 of our series. If you guys have any questions or comments or suggestions even, feel free to let me know. I'm just as much a learner as you guys. And like you, I'm also looking for ways to improve. So if you guys have any ideas or suggestions, feel free to let me know. Google Earth is a bit tricky at first to get your hands on, but once you do have a pretty good idea of how it works, you'll be making maps in no time at all. As always, thanks again for watching. Until next time, take it easy.